Now, with Christina Korm's name officially introduced in court under oath, prosecutors are reportedly preparing to subpoena her for direct questioning. Multiple sources inside the courtroom say that if she is called, her testimony could be explosive, either reinforcing Cassie's claims of surveillance, intimidation, and cover-ups, or further complicating the inner web of loyalty surrounding Diddy. In a shocking twist, legal insiders revealed late Thursday night that 2 additional former assistants have come forward to prosecutors, offering to testify under immunity. Their statements, according to one source familiar with the sealed transcripts, allege that Christina Korm was involved in logistics for the freakoff sessions, including arranging transportation for male escorts, securing hotel rooms under alias names, and even managing encrypted communications between Diddy and certain participants. This comes just as federal investigators are reportedly considering expanding the scope of the case to include obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and interstate conspiracy charges. Legal experts say that if proven, these charges could move this from a sex trafficking case to a major federal racketeering RICO prosecution, which often carries mandatory minimum sentences and allows the government to seize assets tied to alleged criminal operations. Meanwhile, courtroom tension reached a breaking point when the third witness of the day, a former housekeeper at Diddy's Miami mansion, took the stand in tears. She testified that she often cleaned up after what she described as horrific scenes in the aftermath of Diddy's private parties, mentioning blood-stained sheets, used condoms, and the overpowering smell of alcohol and baby oil. She claimed she once walked in on Cassie crying in the bathroom, covered in bruises, and that when she attempted to help, she was warned by another staffer to mind her place or she'd lose her job. The day ended with prosecutors submitting a sealed list of electronic devices they claim to have recovered from Diddy's properties in New York, LA, and Miami, including hard drives and encrypted phones believed to contain photos, videos, and messages tied to the alleged abuse. Court resumes Monday morning, where Cassie is expected to return to the stand for cross-examination. Legal analysts say this will be a crucial moment in the case, not just for Cassie, but for the jury, as the defense attempts to poke holes in her credibility. However, with multiple witnesses already backing her timeline and graphic evidence reportedly ready to be introduced, the momentum seems to be firmly with the prosecution.
Were perpetrating.
Victims.
They were were victimized, meaning
victim.
This was happening to them and they were inebriated.
Right. Not knowing, I guess, how much proof it was in it, what they was doing.
And of those 8, how many seemed to be potentially minors?
2 to 3, possibly 3.
I don't know exactly what it is. You actually believe that it's not necessarily off the table yet? He might take a deal?
It's never off the table. And I handle a lot of cases, and that first deal, very rarely do you take. I think that's the start of the process. I know that it's going to have to be something where Diddy's not going to spend a substantial time in jail talking about 10 years or anything like that. Why would you take that? You would rather go to trial and see what the end result is. But if they can offer him something where it's in that 5-year range and there's an understanding that he'll be cleared of everything else, it's going to be appealing to him.
On for 35 years. I think we probably entered the music business at the same time. He entered with Uptown, I entered into Big Beat, Atlantic. At the time, I guess he was ambitious. He was then from ambitious went to doing anything, and then from doing anything to didn't care about nobody, who he could beat, and then he ended up turning to loser.
There will be up to 12 residents of 8 New York counties, including some from upstate, to decide whether Sean Diddy Combs walks away from this case a free man or stays locked down for decades.
Is there anything that you may want to confess tonight before you go in?
I keep everything right here. There you go. Or right here.
There you go.
When a top attorney quits your case in the language used, under no circumstance can I continue. I think people are just pointing at that and say, uh-oh, he can't defend him, and making their own assumptions from there. There have been kind of reports circulating. It seemed like there was a breakdown between Diddy's attorneys about going to trial in May.
Would you be open to a plea bargain?
Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Mr. Combs, and I don't see it happening.
Why?
Because he believes he's innocent. He believes he's innocent, and what's more, he believes that he needs to stand up, not just for himself, for his family, and for everybody who's been targeted by the federal government.
Well, Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
The decision guarantees Combs will face trial beginning just 4 days from now. That will test whether...
Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered as media vans lined the street, reflecting the mounting public interest. Social media erupted with hashtags like #Justice for Cassie and #Diddy trial, trending globally by late evening. Several celebrities, including former collaborators of Diddy, have started distancing themselves publicly, with at least 2 major brands reportedly reconsidering their partnerships with him. Back inside the legal battle, sources close to the prosecution say they are also pursuing financial records tied to shell companies allegedly used to fund the off-the-books events Cassie described in her testimony. Investigators believe these entities could link Diddy to money laundering and illicit payments to silence victims. A former security contractor, expected to testify next week, is rumored to have recordings that may corroborate the claims of covert surveillance in Diddy's homes. One unnamed source familiar with the recordings described them as deeply disturbing, containing audio of arguments, threats, and what appears to be Cassie pleading to leave a locked room. In a surprise move late Friday, Diddy's legal team filed an emergency motion to suppress certain witness testimonies, citing alleged procedural errors and accusing the prosecution of trial by media. The judge has not ruled on the motion, but legal experts say the court is unlikely to grant such relief at this stage, given the gravity and volume of evidence already on record. As the case unfolds, what once seemed like a tabloid scandal has transformed into a potentially landmark case in celebrity accountability. For many, this trial is not just about one man's alleged abuse of power, but a broader reckoning with the culture of silence and protection that has long shielded the elite. With Cassie's cross-examination looming and more witnesses stepping forward each day, the question now is not whether this case will leave a mark on the industry, but how deep it will go. The courtroom is expected to reconvene Monday morning, with Cassie returning to the stand for what's anticipated to be a grueling cross-examination by Diddy's defense team. Legal analysts predict the defense will attempt to cast doubt on her credibility, potentially bringing up past relationships, her financial ties to Diddy, and the timing of her civil lawsuit settlement. However, prosecutors say they are ready and have more witnesses lined up to reinforce every claim. One of those witnesses, reportedly a former house manager employed by Diddy for over a decade, is said to possess a journal containing detailed notes of daily activities at Diddy's residences, including dates of the alleged freakoffs, names of escorts, drug shipments, and even instructions allegedly handwritten by Diddy himself. Meanwhile, more alleged victims are coming forward. At least 2 women have contacted the prosecution in the past 48 hours, according to sources close to the case. Both women are said to have similar stories involving coercion, drugs, and being recorded without consent. Prosecutors are now considering whether to file additional charges or to present these women as pattern witnesses to strengthen the federal RICO case. Outside the courtroom, tensions continue to rise. Protesters gathered again today with signs reading, "Survivors deserve justice" and "Power is not immunity." Several former employees of Bad Boy Records have also begun speaking anonymously to press outlets, describing a culture of fear and absolute control inside Diddy's empire, painting a picture of a powerful man who allegedly weaponized wealth, influence, and surveillance against anyone who tried to walk away. Despite the mounting allegations, Diddy remains composed in court, flanked by his legal team. His lawyers maintain that this trial is nothing more than a smear campaign fueled by opportunism and media hysteria, insisting that any interactions between Diddy and Cassie were consensual and complicated by a long, emotionally charged relationship. But the courtroom is telling a different story, one built on years of trauma, manipulation, and secrecy now brought into the open under oath. And with more shocking testimonies expected in the coming days, one thing is clear: this trial is far from over.